how do you allow intuition to guide you? So you have to be still to observe intuition.
I try to document like this incredible fragility of things, which, yeah, um, can be gone in a moment.
Welcome to Cross Border Conversations, a STIR original video series where thought leaders from across countries and creative disciplines come together virtually to talk on all things design. Our speakers for today, Bijoy Jain and Iwan Baan, are two of the world's most sought after professionals whose works seek to reveal the spirit of a place through architecture and photography. Mumbai-based architect and founder of Indian practice, Studio Mumbai, Bijoy is well known for his material sensibilities through which he builds for, around and from the earth. With his architecture, walks the mean path between modernism and ancient sustainable practices, his designs, thoughtful and uncompromising to the last detail, use local resources and Indian craftsmanship to become the basis of his highly contemporary creations. Wearing a host of international acclaims, Bijoy is a man of great ideas. But did you know that Bijoy lived many years in LA and London? And one of the reasons that he returned to India was to pursue a deep interest in yoga. And as a teenager, he was a professional swimmer who had, to his credit, swimming across the English Channel successfully at age 18. So someone who believes his work at root is about water or the search for it, I welcome Bijoy Jain. One of the most influential architectural photographers of today, Iwan, through his images, is known to bring alive architectural buildings and narrate the life and interactions that occur within these spaces. So how did he start out? I believe that on his 12th birthday, he was gifted his first camera by his grandmom, sparking an interest in photography of Iwan, where he would photograph things he would see on the way to school. Today, apparently he hates carrying bigger equipment like tripods and prefers using his iPhone or handheld digital Canon for photography to capture moments that happen in a split second. He now shoots in varied formats which include drone captures, with his first ever aerial photography from a helicopter taking place just one day before 9/11 in New York. With his education from the Royal Academy of Art in The Hague, where he wasn't given a degree, and after having worked in publishing and documentary photography in New York and Europe, and being an inaugural recipient of the Julius Schulman Award for Photography, Iwan narrowed his focus to record the various ways in which individuals, communities, and societies create and interact within their built environment. Today, architects across the world, including distinguished firms such as Rem Koolhaas, Herzog Murong, Zaha Hadid, Toyo Ito, Sana, and yes, of course, Studio Mumbai, turn to Baan to give their work a sense of narrative within their environments. Living the life of a nomad, since the time his home and studio in Amsterdam burned down, Iwan has been traveling the globe with only one suitcase. And today, Iwan, I believe we have caught you somewhere in Europe, back home in Amsterdam. Welcome to Cross Border Conversations.
Thank you, Pramiti. Welcome, Bijoy and Iwan. As the conversation unfolds between both of you, we look forward to hear that at this stage of your professional journey, what is that both of you are in search of? What does context mean to both of you, and why its presence and absence is important to you both? When you work together, what are the things said and unsaid between the both of you? And many more stories, recollections, and anecdotes that you would like to talk about that has informed your professional and personal belief, learnings, and more importantly, your creative process that may have seen various adaptations in sync with ever-changing environment and human behavior. We are sure this conversation between the two of you is bound to inspire millions of design enthusiasts across the globe and creative professionals of today's time and for generations to come. Over to both of you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Thank you for the introduction, and thank you for having us on this platform.
Great to be here. Yes. it's interesting also, like with this introduction about the nomadic life. Of course, we both had a quite nomadic life the last years, which all came to quite an abrupt end, I guess, for you as well. So it's interesting to see, yeah, also what life for you and for me is, I think, at the moment, and what happens here.
Yes, so I'm curious so you've been stationary, I'm guessing, I mean, only now that you've started moving around, is that right? And what,
Yeah, like I got stuck in Amsterdam when the whole pandemic hit. And we were for the first 3 months here, and life was pretty relaxed in a way. Like there was never such a very harsh lockdown here, but yeah, we couldn't travel, and like we used to travel basically non-stop, and with the whole family, with the 2 kids and an au pair and the whole sort of caravan, which suddenly became very different for us, of course. Was also very nice. We suddenly learned a bit more about Amsterdam, which I haven't really been for such a long time, in almost 20 years. And but now the last 3 months, things have opened up a little bit, like small things within Europe. And the last month I was actually in Mexico and America again. So I've started traveling a little bit, but it's certainly a very different travel experience as what we've all used to be. And I think it will be something, for the next couple of years, which will be very different. But it's nice to see your natural habitat.
for me, this has been, uh, in some ways, I mean, I've been looking forward because, yeah, you were saying that earlier, I've been on the road. And I've always been, I've always admired and fascinated, like every time, the only way to know where you are is through your Instagram page, that, okay, today he's in China, another day he's in Mexico. So just the thought of, traveling like that. But it's also been quite, I mean, for me, 7 years of being on the road, like, across continents. And but this time has been really special. I've been looking forward to this time, and it was just a coincidence because about in August of last year I took a break from teaching, and I wanted to kind of just be more stationary, and it just this whole situation unfolded. But what it's allowed me to do is kind of center my energy back, because when you're traveling, at least for me, I'm quite tired at some points, and then to also be reflective and slow, you just it's a different kind of energy, which is also, I think, important. But for me, this has been my most creative 7 months, I think. Like for me, I'm working what would take me, let's say, a month, I can do in a day. I
Yeah,
mean, just in terms of that kind of, maybe it's an exaggeration, but it's just, I think it's just allowed me to kind of step back and be more, uh, I don't want you to say calm, but just be more stationary and still, and just
mm,
allow things so to come
yeah,
towards you. And but yeah, I mean, I've started traveling. But it's more local, like in the south of India. I was there 2 weeks ago, and it's going to be now every 2 weeks, somewhere or the other, that I have to go to a construction site or to go and do some research. Uh,
yeah,
but I like the fact that it has helped kind of in some ways readjust things. And I'm not sure if we'll ever go. I mean, whether we do go back or don't go back, I don't think that's important. I think for me, it's that, okay, this is a good way for me to work, somehow to be out and then come back, but spend a little bit more time in the studio. And like you were saying that I left Bombay or Mumbai about uh, 25 years, 30 years ago.
mm,
And this is the first time I've been stationary in the city, like after like for 7 months after maybe like 20 years.
yeah,
So again, it's just you're making contact with the city, having the opportunity to go through the entire monsoons, to experience the weather again. So for me, that's been quite amazing, and I've actually enjoyed the sort of being in one place. for which is completely the opposite of what I was doing before.
Yeah. That's great. Yeah, like I guess you have also like all your material there in the studio and the
Yeah,
people, and you can work on things, build things, and yeah, to have that uh, focus, that must be great. Like for me, it was also really a way, sort of, to go back into my archive and go through basically 20 years of places where you yeah, come in and out, and sort of trying to start to distill another kind of narrative out of the archive of places I've been, and the things that people have encountered, places I documented, and yeah, I hope to create another sort of story out of that in the near future.
I have a curious question to ask because I've traveled with Ivan and to Joshua Tree, and there's this incredible energy. Just this, it's like an engine that you're. Uh, and maybe it's a stupid question, but I'm continuously inspired and more. That what is this? Where this? The ability to be. The closest that I can think of is Futagawa, Yoshio Futagawa, who did
Yeah,
GA.
yeah,
It kind of reminds me of, he used to be like everywhere. Of course, it was a different time. But what motivates you where does this motivation come from? Or what is it what about what you do? What is the kind of wellspring for that? I don't know if it's a,
yeah. No, I think it's sort of an endless curiosity. Like there are so many, like basically my childhood was incredibly stationary. Um, uh, my parents lived here in the Netherlands. Like they moved a few times around, but always sort of in the vicinity of Amsterdam. Was always sort of close by. Like once in a while, we made a holiday slightly outside the Netherlands, like to Switzerland, to France, to Germany. But like I think I stepped for the first time in an airplane when I was 18 years old, and then I couldn't stop. It became a total obsession. I felt always like it's better homesick than home after I had that experience. And photography is such an incredible excuse to be sort of at home in any kind of place, and people invite you into their places, into their homes, into their like now with architects, into the spaces they created. And it's just fascinating to see what's out there in the world. And like I've traveled a lot, of course, in the last 25 years, but like there's still so many places which are totally new, and like you're totally amazed when you step into that. And yeah, that keeps that incredible drive. And it was strange actually to now travel again after being 3 months, 4 months completely stationary. Of course, sort of the main like excuse to travel nowadays, like are like is commissioned work, architects who ask you to go to things. But like I always try to include my own interest in these places. And like I was now the last 3 weeks in the US, working on a few immediate projects, but then also like to see what America is, like the strange juxtaposition America is in right now, like with all the politics, with the natural environment there right now. Like you feel the anxiety sort of everywhere in the country. And I try to capture also all these other moments there. And luckily sort of the projects I'm working on, like you try to steer them also into these subjects which interest you at a certain point, and try to document also all these moments. So that was definitely sort of a theme in the last 3 weeks when I was there, that you feel that very strange moment America is in right now.
And while you were when you were stationed for 3 months, did you miss being on the road, or that was or you just accepted what was present
No,
and just
like it.
entered into that?
Yeah, it was really good also to be at home, and it finally gave me also like an opportunity. Like there's always this um, drive to see other things there. Like I feel always like there's so many things always on my list I want to see and go and do. And it's hard to sit still, but when you're suddenly forced to, it was also very nice to go back into that archive and see um, uh, these places we've been to, and sort of try to distill another kind of story out of that. Seeing places, like starting to make more a list of places I want to go back to, start investigating more and so on. So that's something which is always yeah, difficult to get to these kind of things when you're in the day-to-day thing of traveling, of course.
Yeah. So in some ways, you're kind of build up on, there's a, like once you go to a place once, then that allows you to go to a place once again. And you kind of build up. No, it's like that's the start of a project, not the.
Totally. Yeah.
For me, I found it fascinating also, just in the way that, and I was mentioning it earlier, that this idea of how, like when we are together, or like when you've come a few times to the studio, when we've been on some, project, like when we were at Chiaki's. Uh, and what I like, I mean, for me, I mean, I think there's, people are curious about how things unfold. And actually, nothing is really, we don't really communicate, or we don't talk about the project, or we don't even, you go about seeing things, and, just in the way that you want to see them. And for me, what I enjoy is that to anticipate how you're seeing it, because it allows me to have another viewpoint, very different, or not different from mine, but something that, brings a freshness uh, to seeing something that you've been seeing, often enough.
Yeah, and I think that's also something like which is so important in the work I feel I do, and like which makes it difficult for me also to work in the Netherlands. And I can see that it's also like with a lot of architects, or yeah, when you're so focused on a project for such a long time, like so many things you take for granted in a place, and you kind of overlook them. And that I find something fascinating always when you have that pace of traveling to all these different places. You step every couple days, weeks into a very different environment, and you're so open to all these, how things work completely different somewhere else, and that's a big drive for me also, to travel and to see different things and step each time sort of in a very completely different world.
That brings a question to both of you. At this stage of your professional journey, what exactly are you searching for?
I think for me, very stillness. That's all I'm interested in seeking, is just stillness. And Uh, so actually, my practice now is more focused on, yes, I do work and I, work in the studio and all of that, but that's not my focus anymore. In the sense, it's there and it's something that is part of what I do, but all my energy is not just put into that, and so it's more spending time, and that for me has been the great part of this. Just making contact with just everyday things, and honestly, for me, architecture is not about. And I was, I'm not interested in the building in the sense of, in this sort of idea of architecture as form and building. And for me, it's more and more something that is more elusive, something that's more ambiguous, something that is closer to the idea of topography, landscape, and how can one be a participant of a landscape rather than, this idea of so for me, this idea of stillness, or that work towards that, is that what I've observed is that when things come to you, you spend less energy uh, in that movement to go to that, and that's really been my main. I mean, I've been wanting to do this anyway, so I'm swimming a lot. I mean, now I can't swim because of this situation, but I spend a lot of time like just being. I go to the. I mean, I go for walks and runs and yoga and all of that, which is as much a practice for me as it is as working. In fact, that's become my more primary practice than the work itself. And so yeah, for me, I spend less and less time now. It's more. Uh, and I guess why I'm saying stillness is that how do you allow intuition to guide you? So you have to be still to observe intuition. Or to be intuitive, like you're being more present is the best way. Is And I think that's what I experience. Like when I see Ivan, like he's very present at, he's not thinking of, he's just there and you're present and you're moving and your hand and your eyes and your ears and they're just moving and, being, making contact. There's a sort of, intimacy is another word, so I think stillness allows for allows for intimacy. So for me, that's really been my main, the more I think about it, like moving forward now, the only practice for me is working in that way, I make objects, I'm, making other things, not necessarily, architectural in the architecture way or that idea. Uh, so for me, the expression, yeah, it's, mediums can change, other things can come in. For me, what I want to have at the center is, being able to be present at that moment in time.
Yeah, yeah.
You know?
No, I can see that. And of course, like it's strange to say that for the way I live and the way I travel, but I feel stillness. Like that moment is very much like when you're the observer as a photographer and you're in a place and observe that what's happening there. And um, I feel very connected with that word, like in a way, like when I'm working and I'm like not the actual traveling. Like of course, like there's always the hectic parts of that, but once you're in a place and you observe what people do there, and you try to capture that and bring that home and bring that to another audience, I think that's a very important part of sort of the everyday thing. And that was something like I really missed when I it's kind of strange because it's also the opposite as what you do. Like you find that stillness in one place, and I find that stillness when I'm also traveling and you observe a new place and you try to bring that home again. um,
No, for me, I mean, this is like I was away in Pondicherry right now, and you're present then, you're present there. So it's,
mm,
I think for me right now, what it's allowed me to just put myself back together, because I was, the travel was beginning to get to me physically. So it was more to allow me to just kind of build myself back to be strong. I mean, to have sort of a tenacity to negotiate all of this. So it's not that I have to be in my studio or I have to be physically in one place, but it's that, you're more connected. And I mean, I've seen you, and I think one of the interesting things that, Pramiti was interesting. Ivan has been able to, and I've seen some beautiful pictures of him at the airport. I remember you showed me a picture of you and Jessica and the kids in the airport, in Delhi airport, in that room looking down at the and I guess what I want to say here is that what for me is what is, what I observe is that Ivan is looking at the world in a very there's no prejudice. You're just absorbing what you're experiencing. And for me, that's the most, I think, important part, to be able to I think there's a word called transact. It's like a cross section that you take across large landscapes, and in a way, the work is like a transact, like taking these sections of east, west, north, south, but across the sort of surface of the earth. And it includes so many things, not just buildings, people, art, I mean, all kinds of things.
It's also part of traveling. You're often in sort of total no man's land, or you feel totally out of place. And I think that's what I tried to say earlier. Also, like through photography, you have that reason, or you create kind of that reason to be in places where otherwise you feel totally unheimisch, as they would say in German. Like you feel totally out of place, but you still you make it your own. And I feel very quickly comfortable kind of in any kind of place.
Both of you are experiencing people through your work in very different ways. Bijoy, you're probably chatting with them and converting their dreams into reality, whether it is building a house for them or even the bridge by the canal that you had done. It is like people want to be and chat and be around and walk nature. Whereas Ivan, you are actually moving from the reality to an experience, because that's what you're trying to capture within your images, right? The experience that the people would have had in this space, whether it's a structure or a public structure or a residential thing. So Ivan, did you ever feel that when you were doing all these captures, do you want to understand where the whole thing started from? I mean, do you connect with the homeowners? Do you connect with the architects? Do you connect with the, does that help you get your pictures the way you want to get them? Or
yeah, definitely. Like it's always great, like to be in a different place where, like, it doesn't even have to be like architecture so much. Like it's, but you connect with people, sort of their everyday life surroundings. They think it's the most logical and normal thing, but it can be for us something a totally new experience. People find a way to live kind of under any kind of circumstance and create and build a home for themselves under any kind of circumstance, and that can be for someone else somewhere else, so different, so out of this world. And I think that's also like, again, the traveling and stepping into this different world to document that it's very important to talk with these, and like they bring you also into that world, and you start chatting, and you express an interest in their world, and they bring you in and show you also very different parts of it.
I don't think we've had that kind of conversation about, when we're at I mean, I don't, it's more like that. It's not about it's not about design or it's not about art. I mean, yeah, it's just like enjoying each other's presence. And I think more of what's unsaid than that is said. That is for me. I think that's what I enjoy in my friendship with Ivan. It's like, there's a camaraderie which kind of goes beyond speech in some sense, beyond like having to really speak about something. And I enjoy that. Like I was with him in Joshua Tree on a small little sort of trip, and yeah, just he was showing us things. I mean, he was showing me like things that that were there in the landscape, and I think that's what we share more. Things that I'm curious about, and sharing that, but not by it's not. It's something that just unfolds in the movement. It's more present, like what we were talking about. It's something that's more present. I feel that's the sense I get. That's the quality that I enjoy. Is that everything is very present, and we don't have. I mean, at least I. Yeah, it's just you just kind of flow with the energy there. So no, there's no active. And Ivan, you can correct me if I'm wrong. I mean,
Yeah, no, but like I think what we share also a lot is this curiosity in like in yeah, working with a landscape and bringing people and a landscape and so together. And that's also like why I brought you to Joshua Tree,
yeah.
where we have a little piece of land in a kind of incredible nature. And the first time, like it's a place where I come already for 25 years, and it's so out of this world, such a different universe, almost you're stepping in. But I had the same kind of experience when I visited in India, Hampi, um, which felt quite, in terms of landscape, very similar, and how people treated that landscape and built kind of living spaces out of there. And yeah, when I see your work and how you work with what's right there, um, I felt like you could do something also in a very different landscape where you're usually it's a place which you intimately know, but I felt this is a kind of similar connection you could have with that.
I think one of the things that I'm enjoying most is like some of the projects. I mean, I'm just saying this is one of the discoveries that I've made is, whether I like, for me, it's not even any more important to be on the site to go see the project. So, I'm enjoying this idea of, kind of what's communicated to you through a video, or a site visit through a video. Like, so I'm doing a small little house in South Tyrol, up in the sort of mountains in northern Italy, and like this winery that I'm building. And I don't see, I'm not going to be able to travel at least for the next couple of months. Uh, but it's really nice to have this idea of having a connection, and one doesn't physically. I mean, for me to physically, not be there also is as exhilarating as being there. There's something else that comes from that idea of distance. But I think the distance is more a head, like it's a perception thing. I don't feel the distance even in the medium that one has to communicate right now. I don't feel a sense of a distance. Of course, there's something very particular when you're there and it's tactile, and you get a sense of, okay, down. You get a sense of you know something that you imagined was of a certain dimension or proportion, and when you go there, it's something quite different from that. But I like these kind of like errors, if you want to call it, like an error in your perception or your that, and then you have to kind of adjust and work towards it. So I'm actually quite liking this idea of distance, that's been created just by not being able to be someplace. For me, India's, this is where I am, but I don't see any boundaries anymore. I don't see any borders anymore. For me, there's never been any borders about where I work, how I work, who I work with. It's not exclusive to my studio, and I'm finding that more and more, you know, uh, how do I sort of, I think in the same way that I'm not wanting to make a comparison, but it kind of, it's a more open, more fluid, more diverse field. I'm not sort of bound by my studio, because to be bound by my studio would be like, would be the end of me. And or to be working with just only Indian craftsmen. I mean, that's like, it's too much. I feel it's too tight. And so I like this idea that things are, it's very fluid. I'm working in Japan, I'm working in Europe, I'm, doing projects here. And for me, again, it's this idea of more the anthropological interest, like just, curiosity of how people are, how the expressions change, how, food, proportions. And I mean, building is just one part. And I guess what I want to say is that what I enjoy is that the the generosity you experience is the same, independent of where you are. And for me, that's like the most exhilarating part of, being able to kind of be in that kind of state of movement.
So I wanted to ask, is there any experience that either of you have had professionally, which makes you sit back and think on, what is life, or what am I doing, or have I done enough? Do I need to do something different? Do I need to do more?
That's also like a part of my work. I try to document like this incredible fragility of things, which can be gone in a moment. And of course, like with the Sandy image, that was also something like these kind of things you can never plan for, but like you be present in places, and the moment you come back, things can be very, very different.
Yeah, I mean, for every project, that'd be like 5 different ways to approach. I mean, I'm now talking about like specifically to work. But more and more now, and that I refer to the idea of stillness, is to, is not to be in that kind of, for me, just that, to kind of go with the flow, and to go with the thing that is being worked on. Okay, it will adjust itself. And because those can be sort of huge swings that at times I would experience that. Like I'd build, I remember I'd built Palmyra house, and for a month I would not sleep, because like I thought, at that point that something had to be there. But what I want to say is that I guess when one is doing, you're looking for something that you have not, you have a sense of something, and that's all you really have, and you pursue that sense. Because if you know the project, or if you know what it's going to be like, for me, I would not be able to go through the project. It would be, why do something that at all. And so for me, I think it's that anticipation of what's going to unfold is, for me, the most exhilarating part, I think, of working. And that's what I keep in the center. I'm doing something, for example, in Chennai, and have I experienced it before? Yeah, I'm experiencing it, but the work, when it comes into fruition, you can sort of sense, you can experience what you've been experiencing for so long. For me, so it's the not knowing part that I find far more exciting than the knowing part. It's for me, that's what I keep at the center of, even making decisions, because it's not about knowing or not knowing, it that you just sense, yes, it's sort of on a fundamental core, like, yeah, this is, it's about a certain sort of tactility, whether it's light, sound, uh, and again, not necessarily, it's not about architecture, so to speak, but it's just about how that space is filled with this sort of energy. I think more like I'm more interested now in energy fields. Architecture is energy field. So that's something that, that has evolved in the practice, that has evolved in doing what I'm doing. That now I realize that, actually my interest is like, that what I do, at least, let's say in a building or in a landscape, is, how do you draw out the energy, and that's what you're experiencing. The building can fall, can disappear as far as I'm concerned. Uh, so for me, yeah, that's uh, those, less and less now. It's more calm. I find myself more calm and not worrying about the other way that you can do it, because you can always do something in 100, more than 100 different ways, you know, and those choices are always going to be there. But I think I'm more focused on what do I really need to focus on, and that's, for me, it's just atmosphere now, just energy field.
Like I think every time we meet Bijoy, like I'm always fascinated what you have come across in on your continent in India. Like there's like I have always this fascination of yeah, building with the landscape and out of the earth, and there's so many incredible uh, uh, examples you show me all the time of what's being done there on the continent, and that's something I always really enjoy when we meet and you show me these kind of things, and that's a big yeah path I'm always trying to find also in different places. Like I feel it's also something which is disappearing so quickly everywhere. Um, these the kind of how simple and natural it used to be to create a space out of found materials, out of a sort of environment which is there already, and to enhance that and create something unique out of that. And India has so many examples, but I come, of course, also across many of these places around the world, which we try to share, and that's always something we share a lot.
I'm going to speak up. I mean, I'm just like, if you just look at the sheer depth and body of work, just when I see Ivan, just the way he has scanned like the surface of things, like the surface of topography, from sky and ground. I think the most valuable aspect of this is that it becomes the basis or like a foundation, So even when something that will exceed his lifetime. Yeah, these are sort of their repositories. No, this just the sheer, and I don't want to even call it like the work he does. They're repositories of civilization. Like of a certain period of time, and and it's kind of woven across continents, several times, and I think that's very powerful. Just that itself, for me, is it's. I mean, I'm sure it must be going into many terabytes. Just the sort of. And for me, yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
No, but like it's like when you say that, like of course, like I try to see all these places, but I feel there's still like so much more to like it's so difficult to be that to show that almost encyclopedic view. And there's like that's also that the drive we were talking about earlier, like every time like you come across things, like you think, oh, that has to be added to really tell that story. And that's also like about many worlds which are disappearing very quickly at the moment. I feel like, whereas like, yeah, at one hand, like of course in my commissioned work with architects, like you see the most sort of amazing new designs and innovative solutions, but at the same time there creeps me always a feeling that there's more and more which just looks the same, because we're also used to like, yeah, order all the materials from what we need to build out of the catalog, and it becomes more and more the same, and a lot of the design becomes a kind of veneer almost on things. And that's yeah, a big part of my drive of going to all these different places, that what is sort of that unique story of a place you can tell, what makes yeah, tells that story about that place, what makes it unique.
I think Ivan is the story behind those pictures. I mean, yeah, it's the artist. No, it's not about, I mean, in some ways, uh, yeah, that, I mean, just the sheer depth. Lalibela, I remember, I mean, I remember him sharing pictures, and I remember you talking about going to Lalibela before I saw the pictures, and then seeing the pictures. Yeah, but these things are things that stay. I guess the key is, continuity. That's really what one is looking for, is continuity. Not, yeah, and for me, in terms of what does, yeah, you just, you want to leave a sort of like a foundation of something that somebody else can come and build upon. The building I know is going to go down, and it will change, and it will get, parts of it will be occupied in some funny ways or in not so funny ways, but somewhere in the midst of all of that, the idea that there's something much bigger than all of that, that, so I mean, that's something that is there in all, is, somehow I try and embed something in the ground, or something that, collects water. But for me, yeah, it's about those, I think the word is palimpsest, to allow for palimpsest, in that there is like magic, many allow things to accrue and grow. And that for me is, knowingly or unknowingly, in many different ways, in conflict, in meeting. But palimpsest is important for me, this idea of an overlay. That for me is most fundamental. So somehow, if there's a little space, you want to leave space for palimpsest. You want to leave that.
Nice.
It keeps things open.
So, Ivan, if you have to take Bijoy's continuity story forward, and if you have to document his professional journey, what was the first thing come to your mind?
I feel that like the continuity, like how Bijoy works with the environment, with like things of Bijoy, like they feel like as if they've always been there in a way, like they feel really rooted and strongly connected to a place, and a sort of a totally natural way, like it had to be there in a way. And uh, I think that's with all the projects which I've seen from you. That's a very strong feeling I always had with the places, and I think that it's a, yeah, a combination of yeah. The materials, the incredible handwork, which is always so much part of it. You feel that the amount of work which went in there, and that there's no thing which came from a mill or the catalog, anything which was produced in somewhere else, or just dreamed up for uh, a, a design reason, but like they really had to be there for another reason and for a long time. And like I capture a moment, a picture in a hundredth of a second, but like with Bijoy's work, it feels like, yeah, it's there for a long time. And yeah, the sort of then the way it's becoming almost part of nature also, and of that side is very important. And I love photographing that and sort of transforming that feeling into photographs as well.
For both of you, your professions are currently your passion as well, right? So, is there something which is a second passion for you, which the world does not know of? And if yes, what is it? We want some secrets.
No, my passion is swimming, not my work.
No second passions, Bijoy?
Oh no, I think they're all. I mean, I love my work and I love what I do, but no, that's not my first. No way, that's not my first. For me, no, it's about you know uh, sort of nourishing the source. For me, that's my most important. I mean, that's really, and I love swimming. I mean, for me, water and the sea. I mean, any body of water for me, that's like it's a different experience. For me, I'm immersed, and so I don't. I mean, I no, because the work can consume you, and I don't want my work to consume me. I want to be part of that work. And so I love what I do, and it gives me great pleasure. But there are many other things that I do that give me equal amount of pleasure. So animals and plants and landscapes, and I think nurturing. Just the whole action of nurturing for me is what I would say is for me the most important. And how to use that in different situations. So that just is one part. It's not, that's not
Yeah.
what drives me every day.
Yeah. I can see that. Like swimming, for me, that's also like the only thing I can do sort of anywhere, and in terms of sports, and it's a great way to, yeah, uh, uh, be in a very different environment and a kind of weightlessness, and uh, that's important. But for me, like. I wouldn't I still can't really say that like what I do is my work. It feels like sort of a constant journey and a curiosity, and like, yeah, by the way, I take a few pictures of places, but
Yeah,
it's that journey.
I think I must share this, that it's it's something that Ivan's family life, his what we're calling they're all as one. There's no I mean, everything kind of very seamless. There's a lightness to all of it. There's no divisions. It's all sort of all works in a kind of a flow. And absolutely right. So work is not. It's a way of life, I would say. It's not work.
It
It's
is
more a way of
totally.
life. It's just a kind of like a riyaz, a practice.
Yeah.
It's something that you do. And you know. I mean, he's got two lovely children. They're young and they travel with him. I've seen them. I mean, at the Venice Biennale, remember, your kid was there in the pavilion, and it's all part of the same thing. And I think that's important. I think that's a very important thing, because
But
then everything is
yeah,
fresh. Everything is, it's a new experience.
yeah.
And I think that's the main thing. That's the main thing.
Um, it's so quickly, so easy to set in ways like everyone else is doing, but like there's so many ways, and there's so many answers for everything, and that curiosity can bring you to into many different worlds all the time.
I would say, for me, these are things that I have learned along. To trust. Trusting oneself also it takes, uh, yeah, it takes a kind of, I don't want to call it you have to nurture that.
Mm.
nurture that, for that trust to be something that's very much part of that flow.
Can you design trust?
No,
No?
no. Then it's about, for me, design is, the moment something by design, at least in the way that it's about then you're wanting to control it. And here it's not about control, it's about just being present. There are days when you would, it's that ebb and flow, no, of, you're clear about something, and then, like there was something that I did, like, so I've been doing for 2 months, and then there's a moment that, hey, what the hell am I doing? And then you kind of have to think back and, and slowly. So it's not, no, I don't think you can design trust. I think you can nurture it, you can cultivate that. It's like farming, no? Like you have to throw the seed into the soil, and then water the soil and watch the soil, and see the insects come, and all of that, and you'll be part of that, and see that grow. So you can't design that. But maybe I can, let me see if I can, I want to share something which is really, since we are all here, and this is just a photograph that I received, and I thought it was very beautiful. I mean, just something I want to share. This actually was taken by a journalist in how do I say, in the central east part of India. So they basically, this is the village where these, I mean, around that, and they basically turned the walls of their homes into the streets into a school.
Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's very beautiful. And that's the teacher there with the mic and the boombox that's hanging on his shoulders.
Wow.
Wow,
Yeah.
it's amazing.
So everyone has their own personal blackboard.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
there's a little text. I mean, it's quite lovely, the fact that they, just the idea of how this whole, it just kind of opens up, like, to think of this whole thing. And then when you're reading about all the things that are happening in universities in America and blah blah blah, and when I hear people in Bombay talk about, how they have to do meetings, and then you have this, this is just something else. I think it's just very beautiful, just, how what was seen as a closed space is an open space, so it's not even the adversity is just sort of, it's just opened up another kind of dimension of how you can communicate and exchange and learn, no? Just discover.
Yeah.
And it's about architecture, and yet it's not, But I just wanted to share it with Iwan.
It's lovely. Thank you.
Nice. Can I share a few pictures of my last trip in America?
Yes, sure.
A very, very different world, of course. Let me see. So this was in Saginaw, hardcore Michigan, rural America, where I was for a project I'm working on with Michael Murphy, Mass Group, where like they did research in all these cities, which in the 60s and 70s got these massive urban renewal funds, which often drove major highways straight through old city centers. They were all kind of former working like Rust Belt cities. All the manufacturing and so which was there, but of course these issues like really literally divided cities, like highways, big developments went straight through the cities in order to create a kind of new economy there, and instead most of these places went even further down. And it's just fascinating to see that part of America, which is so forgotten, which became now, of course, really kind of big Trump country. and you see like these cities where like all the city fabric is lost basically. Like it's the opposite is what I feel when I visit these villages in India, like the picture you just sent, where everything feels compact and there's a whole world sort of around you. Like here you see a city which used to be a sort of prosperous um, um, uh, 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 working city, and then like people leave, buildings fall apart, and then all these buildings got bulldozed. So you see like everywhere like these almost nail houses still standing, but like all the city fabric is basically lost there, and it's just this sort of very sad, empty places of like an America which is long gone, but where you still see kind of the traces of people who used to live there or still live there here and there, but in a very incoherent kind of landscape. And then when I was there, I found out that the evening uh, um, I was there, like there was a Trump rally, and so I signed up. I was just really curious to see what kind of people come there. Yeah, it felt also very much in um, the kind of research we were doing in these cities. And so I signed up for that. I was the only one completely decked out in a face shield and mask and gloves and the whole thing. All these people who still believe like it's a hoax, but it's scary. Like these people who, feel like they lost all their connection with like lots of people who laid off, and like kind of very different America, which they feel lost, which they think a Trump can bring back. But it felt so desperate, everything to be around that place and see that that's certainly a very different world than where you're in at the moment.
It's amazing. The first part of your pictures showed how the entire community is so disconnected. And then moment there is a community-led event, it could be a political rally or whatever, and people come together. And there's been a debate in last 8, 9 months what humanity is actually, what is the meaning of humanity today? Are we, has, has this pandemic got us together, or has this pandemic actually um, kept us in isolation, and therefore we got so used to what we are to ourselves vis-a-vis being part of a bigger mother earth family? And it's a question mark uh, in front of all of us.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's strange. Like when you see in America, also like New York feels completely empty at the moment. Like 30-40% of all the storefronts are boarded up, like are for rent. The city feels very empty. Everyone is, of course, working from home. Offices are empty. And then you come to a Trump rally, which is like the total opposite. That's the only sort of place where people still believe that they can do these kind of things. It's very disconcerting, and it's a strange world.
Like I said, these things will come and go. You can't allow that to be pressure you in some way. I mean, one is dealing with one's own state of mind, though, so that itself is enough to deal with. So now to take something more on oneself is like, no, I guess the only thing you just continue, you just keep doing what you're doing, and that's all that matters. I think that's just just keep chipping away at that rock.